morning we're talking about debt. And I'm coming to you from a spot here on Lanai that I've never been. Lived here 6 years. This is a 45-minute hike from the house, and I've never been here. And yet I've driven by it in the boat 100 times. This coastline here. This is a famous fishing spot for all the locals. Around that corner to the right is Sweetheart Rock. And over there is Maui, way over there. And that little pile of rocks out there in the water is called the Cathedrals, which is one of the top dive spots in the world. It has like an awesome cave that you can go in. Great big cave. But I'm here to talk about debt this morning. Oh, and I wanted to show you Marley, the adventuresome dog. Hey, Marley, say hi. Yeah. Marley. I made him pose for a picture this morning, which I'll drop in the comments if you want to look at it later. So, for the last few days and the next few days, I felt inspired to talk about personal finance, financial IQ, wealth accumulation, how to become a multimillionaire in the prime of your life so you can spend the next 30 years enjoying it. We talked about that, I think, yesterday. Yesterday we talked about, how to save the money to do it by being smart on the cars that you buy. And today I thought I'd drill down a little bit on debt. So I just acknowledge, okay, I'm not a financial planner. Like, I don't have like 4 initials after my name. And I don't have a master's degree or a PhD in personal finance. And I'm not a certified personal financial planner or anything like that. But I am a guy that used to earn $3.05 an hour. And so, I think there's a lot of financial planners that probably don't have $100,000 worth of net worth. So I'm not saying I'm smarter than them. I'm just saying what I have to say has perhaps some credibility and authenticity. And it's just a viewpoint, right? It's not the facts. I don't have the facts on hardly anything. It's just a perspective that I offer for your consideration. And so I titled this, Debt is Good, Debt is Bad. I talked about this the last couple of days. How is debt good and how is debt bad? Well, if you own debt, own it. Well, what does that mean if you own debt? Well, one of the ways you can own debt, like if you have $200,000 or $300,000 cash and you have it, in some kind of a bank account or some kind of an investment account or a 401k or wherever you have it there, basically what you're doing is you're loaning your cash to someone else. So here's how banks work. So you put $100,000 in a savings account in the bank. They pay you 1.2% interest. And they're only going to pay you that if you lock the money up for a year or something. And then what do they do with your money? So you loan it to them. Then they loan it to other people. And they give you, let's say, 1.2% for it. And they loan it to other people for 3% or 4% or 14% or 24%, right? Whatever they can get. Even if you're investing in a company, if you're investing like privately in a company, not in the stock market, but if you're privately investing in a company, you're basically loaning them your capital, and how they're going to pay you back is either with dividends, royalties, or, some promise of going public and giving you a multiple of your money. In all of these cases, when you and I have cash and we give it to people who are better at deploying it at a higher level, and here's another classic example. You got a couple $100,000, find a hard money real estate broker That's somebody that finds people who they want to buy homes. They can't qualify for a traditional mortgage, so they need alternative financing. So they go to a hard money broker. That person gets them the money. Maybe it's, $200,000 for a house at 10% or 12%, right? They're not getting 4% because they can't qualify for a traditional mortgage. Maybe they're self-employed. Maybe they got too much debt. Maybe they had a bankruptcy, right? So they go to a hard money lender. Well, you can loan your money to a hard money lender. You can take your $200,000, give it to a hard money lender. They'll lend it to somebody buying real estate with it. And you get 10% on your money instead of 1% on your money. So however you do it, right? So the classical way is you just give your money to the bank. And they have it all, they've been brilliant for, 100 years at posturing, put your money here, it's safe here, right? You put your money in our bank and, we're the Rock of Gibraltar and, we have the best saving rates on the planet, right? 0.5%, 0.75%, 1%. So how much is that? You put $100,000 in a bank, $100,000. And what do they give you? About $90 a month for the use of your $100,000. And what do they do with it? Well, they're making $900 a month on it. So in all these cases, when you deploy your cash and you get some kind of return, that relationship is you owning debt. Somebody owes you money. If I give you my $100,000, you owe me the interest rate. You owe me the debt. So in that case, debt is good, right? And of course, that can compound. So if I put $100,000 somewhere and I'm getting a 10% return, that $100,000 doubles every 7 years. So 7 years from now, I have $200,000. Most of you should be able to track with how this works. 7 years from now, I have $200,000. If I still don't touch it, 14 years from the beginning date, I have $400,000. 21 years from the beginning date, I have $800,000. 28 years, $1.6 million. 35 years, $3.2 million. Now, if I just stop at 3.2 million and I start taking the money out instead of letting it compound, 10% a year, how much do I earn forever? $320,000 a year, forever. That's $25,000, $26,000 a month, forever. What does forever mean? It means that I earn $26,000 a month as long as I'm getting 10% return. As long as I'm alive, and when I die, my heirs get $26,000 a month. And when they die, their heirs get $26,000 a month. This is how the rich get richer, folks. I mean, imagine if you had, $5 million at 10%. That's $500,000 a year. It's $40,000 a month. Now, when you're new money, you're brand new to $40,000 a month. You spend it like a drunk sailor, right? You're buying a new house, you're buying cars, you're loaning it to your friends, your family, right? But old money's already gone through all of that foolishness. They've already bought the homes. They've already figured out the theory of relativity, right? Which is the more money you got, the more relatives you got. That's kind of a joke, right? But they've already figured that out. And that's why they tend to be recluses, right? Is they're protecting themselves. And that's how the rich get richer is once you don't need to spend the $40,000 a month every month because you're beyond new money. Now you just let it ride. And when you let it ride, your 5 million turns into 10 million and then 20 million and then 40 million and 80 million and 160 million. And you wonder why people, the top 1/10 of 1% have so much money is because they can't spend it all. So it just keeps compounding. And when you have $1 million, you don't have to settle for 1% return. When you have $1 million, you're going to get 10%. Because that's a big enough wad that you're going to have leverage. You're going to know people. You're going to be in the right circles. You're not going to be getting what the masses get who have a $700 savings account. They're going to get 0.5%, which is nothing, right? So in all those cases, folks, that's how debt is good, and debt is how the rich get richer because they own it. And how they owned it is they got themselves in a position where they started with cash to begin with. They got the $100,000. Now, how do you get $100,000? You just have to spend less than you make. You have to avoid all the keeping up with the Joneses, right? We'll talk about that tomorrow. You have to avoid all that. You have to be your march to your own drummer, right? You just have to spend less than you make. And if you don't make enough, go make some more. Because you can. Because human beings can make all kinds of money doing all kinds of things, right? You don't have to settle. You can go make money. There's ways to do it. So how is debt bad? Well, debt's bad when which is really like about the bottom 95% socioeconomically of people in this country, is they have that mentality of keeping up with the Joneses. They are susceptible to advertising. They buy $200 pair of tennis shoes. They buy $600 video game consoles. They have to have the latest iPhone. They have to have a nice car. They have to buy the best wine. They have to go to the best restaurants. They have to have all the whatever, cable TV. They got to have all that stuff, right? But they can't afford it. So what do? They use credit cards. It's the American way, right? Use credit cards. Sorry, my thing collapsed. Hold still, Marley. We won't be here much longer. He's getting antsy. So, how do credit cards work? Where you're going to pay 10, 12, 19, 24% for a credit card. The worse your credit score, the higher interest rate you're going to get, right? So notice the way the whole thing is, the deck is stacked, right? So if you have low financial IQ, well, that leads to a bad credit score, right? Because you've made bad mistakes. You've gotten in over your head. You got too much credit. You're late on payments. You're disorganized, right? So now you have a low credit score, which means that you're going to pay 20, 24% interest for a credit card, which makes the poor get poorer. It's a slippery slope when you have low financial IQ. So the whole system is stacked against people. If you have low financial IQ, you're likely to have even lower financial IQ because you're going to go further and further into debt. And then they have this whole concept, which they love. These credit card companies just love to enslave people in debt. They have the minimum payment, right? So, and that's the way people look at debt. Like, what's the payment? What's the minimum payment? Buy a new car, well, instead of asking how much interest am I going to pay over the next 5, 6, 7 years on that $20 or $30 or $40,000, people just ask, what's the payment? And then they sort of irrationally, because they don't have an income expense statement, they just irrationally, oh, well, I think we can afford that, right? We'll figure that out. Oh, I'll just skimp over here. But then they don't end up skimping, right? So debt just has the poor get poorer. And if you're making the minimum payment on a credit card, or, of course you're making probably the minimum payment on a car loan or something like that. Well, how long does it take to pay it off? Well, on a credit card, there's some credit cards, if you make the minimum payment, you never pay it off. And that's what they want. They don't ever want you to pay it off. They want you to keep making your payments on time every month, and then they're going to raise your credit limit so that you buy other things that you can't afford. So you keep making your payments and you never pay off the principal. And now so think of the banks as they have cash, right? They have somebody else's cash that they're giving 1% to, but they're making 19% on you. That's a net profit of 18%. And what are they actually doing? What are they creating? What are they building? What are they manufacturing? Right? What's the leadership contribution they are to the world? Nothing. They don't do anything. They advertise their big pillars of financial institution, and you get a free toaster, or at least you used to a long, long time ago, and put your money with us. And then, of course, we have the best credit cards, because we'll let you transfer your balances for nothing off your other credit cards. Wow, that's nice of you to do that. So if you have money that you owe Chase, well, Bank of America would, rather have you owe them than Chase, right? So free money transfers. And people with low financial IQ, they buy into all this crap. And if you think about it, folks, here's why I think this is a really important conversation. Is if you look at the political strife in our country today, so much of it is economically based. I mean, sure, part of it is philosophy, part of it is religion, part of it is values. Whether it's abortion or border security or immigration or, those super conservative versus super liberal values, the environment. But I think the biggest part of it is economic, right? Because when people are at the bottom of the socioeconomic pile, they're angry, they're frustrated, they're afraid, they're tired, they're worn out. And, especially if they have baked into their DNA that life should be fair, it's not fair that somebody else makes $500,000 a year when somebody else with 3 kids makes $40,000 a year. It's not fair. And people tend to want fairness, even though that's a ridiculous expectation. Life is not fair. The universe is not fair. Business is not fair. Money is not fair. Money flows to people that bring value. The more value you bring, the more money you bring. If you start a business that employs people, you bring more value to the marketplace than somebody who's just an employee. It doesn't mean the employee is not valuable. It just means the person that owns the business, who took the risk, deployed their capital to employ other people, took a risk for their own ambition, for their own abundance. And if the product or the service is of value and it scales, then the founder of the business is worth more than employees, right? It just makes sense. And so, but the challenge we have in our country is that if you are an employee, it's difficult to be upwardly mobile financially. And then you're surrounded with this whole environment of advertising that's bombarded. And we're talking about PhD geniuses in a room, 100 of them, that are all conspiring to take our money, right? Give me your money, I'll give you a pair of $200 tennis shoes that cost me $20 to make in China. That's what they're conspiring to do. And they're way better at what they do than we are at what we do. Because what we do is manage our money, make money and manage it. And most of us are not good at making it. And we're even worse at managing it. We're no match for these 100 geniuses in a room designed to advertise their way into our pocketbooks. So I encourage all of you, follow Dave Ramsey. I don't follow him, but he's probably the most popular guy on personal finance, and he's great, knows exactly what he's talking about. Follow him, follow anybody. Just Google personal finance, just Google debt. Just, if you've got credit cards on a 15% or 19% or even a 10% card, and you have a home, go get a home equity loan and pay off those credit cards and get your interest down to 3.5%, 4% instead of 14%. But if you do that, you can't just run the credit cards up again. Then you got less equity in your home, plus you still got the credit card debt, right? You have to be smart about it. But smart is don't pay 14% when you could pay 4%. And don't finance champagne lifestyle on a beer budget. Just don't do it. Wise up. And why should you wise up? Here's the last thing I want to tell you about why we should wise up around money. It's not just to fix the political strife in this country, but I'm 65 years old, and there's a lot of science out there and futurists that tell me that if I make it to 75 years old, if I make it another 10 years based on my fitness, my diet, my genetics, luck, right? If I make it another 10 years, by the time I'm 75, which would be 2031, the year, the technology in healthcare is going to be so advanced that whatever I would get that might kill me at the age of 71 or 75, they're going to have solved. So I'm going to live to be 80 or 82 or 85 because they figured it out, whether it's a pill or making part of me bionic, whatever, right? And by the time I get to 85, they're going to have figured out whatever would kill me at 85. The point is, our parents might have lived to an average of 75, 77 years old. Contemporaries today, people that are dying today, and my mom just died at 91 years old, 3 or 4 weeks ago, and she had a pig valve in her heart for 20 years. A pig valve. That's pretty archaic technology, right? That's 30-year-old, 40-year-old technology. But it helped her live probably another 15 years to 91 years old. And so what about us, right? What are they going to invent for us? What kind of little chip are they going to put in us, or organ transplant, or pill that they're going to invent, or drug, or treatment, or, my dad died of lung cancer. He died in 9 months. Today, his form of lung cancer is 98% survivable. They cure it 98%. Here's my point, folks. We're going to live to be 100, 110. If you're in your 20s and 30s, you might live to be 140 years old. How are you going to finance that? How are you going to finance that? And if you think the government's going to support you, you're crazy. Our government would be totally bankrupt by then. Why? Because our government is the same as the bottom, has the same financial IQ as the bottom 50% of Americans. Dumber than dumb when it comes to money. Right? All immediate gratification, immediate gratification, immediate gratification. No vision for the long term. No values or commitment to protect our environment or our economy or our democracy for our children and our grandchildren. At the highest levels of government, all Congress, all senators, almost all. And just about everybody that ever holds the highest office. Immediate gratification. What do I need to do this year to get reelected next year? We're on our own, folks. And we need to wise up around money. Make more, invest more. Make more, invest more. Enough of that. Want to see some ocean? This is a cool spot. So this is actually one of the best snorkeling spots on the whole island, right here. Collapse my thing. Massive amount of lobsters in here, I hear. I haven't been in there to find them, but friends that go for lobsters, they find tons of them in here. And right now is lobster season. And look what these locals do here. See these pipes that they've just cemented into the rock or drilled into the rock? This is where they set their fishing poles. These are like outriggers. They just set their fishing poles here and they sit here and talk story. And now you're going to have a totally different view starting tomorrow because today I am traveling to Yosemite area in California to my ranch, and I'll be there for the next 2 or 3 weeks. And so I'll probably still call it Daily Dose of Salt, but there won't be any salt air around where I'm going to be. There might even be some smoke from the forest fires, but we'll keep it going from Bliss Ranch in Wildcat Station, California.